Some exciting life updates, how I'm being challenged personally, what I'm working on in ministry, and exciting things happening. Excited to share these things with you in this episode of the Small Town Pastor Podcast. Thank you once again for tuning in and listening. Hello and welcome to the Small Town Pastor Podcast. This is Ben Beckner. Thank you so much for listening and joining me on this journey. Hello everyone. Thanks once again for tuning in to this Small Town Pastor Podcast. It's been a good long time since I've done this, and in a lot of ways I'm kind of out of practice. And it's not because I haven't wanted to do it. It's life has been pretty chaotic and busy, and I've had a lot of things that I guess I've wanted to share kind of along the way, but finding the time to do it, and then sometimes just having the desire to do it too. And so originally, as I've started this thing, it's been with the intent to share with you this life journey, this process, this new season of life that I found myself in a year and a half ago, or maybe a little bit more now. And man, it's just been crazy as I think back over these last 18 months or better of what all the things God has been doing in my life, the way that He's been challenging me and shaping me in different ways. And so I've got out of the habit of doing this. And so I'm endeavoring to just try and make this a regular thing, mostly because it helps me kind of get these things out of my head and out of my heart even, and just kind of allow me to get it out there and further process it. So yeah, just want to give you, I guess, kind of a quick life update. Lots of things happened over these last several months. So I've got a total of 3 of my kids in college right now, and we're not going to talk about the financial aspect of all of that, but I'm excited for where they're at and what they're doing and what God is doing in their life in that whole process. And this whole season of change and transition has been not only kind of crazy for me, but it has been for them as well. And so one of my daughters, graduated high school this last spring and is now attending college with my oldest daughter. And so that's a cool thing, seeing them kind of experience college life together, and it makes us as parents feel a little bit better that we've got 2 of them kind of close to one another. So excited for what's going on there. I'm excited that each one of them feels like they have a good direction in where they feel like God is leading them. And so as parents, I mean, there's probably nothing more rewarding than seeing them endeavor to follow and discover what God has for them, and trying to pursue that, and understanding too that sometimes along the way that those things can change, but as they understand it now, this is where they're at and what they're doing, and God is so good in that process for them. So excited to catch you up on that. And then I still have one in high school currently. So with her being the only one at home, the whole family dynamic is kind of changed too. And that's been an interesting thing. I'm sure for her, it's been a little more challenging because she's just always known life with her 3 older sisters. And so now being the new only child, things are a bit different for her. So we're learning to how that change and what that adjustment means. But super proud of what she's doing and how she is handling that. So yeah, a lot of still weird transitions as we've been experiencing life in this last couple years. So So I had some show notes, I guess, is how some of these other guys refer to this, and it's just things that I wanted to make sure I hit on and talked about and share with you. And so some things that were off the top of my head was obviously sharing some of these things about what's happening in my life, just in a general sense, but how I'm being challenged personally. And I think that's an important thing for me to continue to think through is how is God challenging me personally? How is He desiring me to grow? What are ways that He's wanting me to be challenged? And so, several weeks, maybe even months ago, I'll go with that. Months ago, I had a strong, I don't know how I want to phrase that, but I was going to be preaching a message on Sunday morning about sanctification, and in our denomination, this is kind of one of the big tenets of what we believe. It holds a lot of things that are marks of what God is doing in your life and your submission to those things. And so, as I was thinking about that and preparing for that, I was thinking about, I can preach this from a pretty scholarly standpoint. I can put all of these things together and present this in a way that theologically is accurate and makes sense. And I wanted to do that. And that, it's not that I didn't, but I really sensed God just speaking to me clearly about how this needs to be worked out in my own life. And so this sanctification, this process of becoming more and more like Christ, needed to be worked out in my life. There were things that wasn't necessarily bad, but I wasn't at a point where every area of my life was fully submitted to God in that way. And so as I began thinking about that and praying about that, and the Lord speaking to me, there were these specific things that He began pointing out in my life that weren't in line. It wasn't sin necessarily, but these were things that of my own heart I had given fully over to the Lord, or in some ways had taken back. And so I wrestled with that and, preached this message that, man, if it was for nobody else, it was for me. And how God specifically pointed out some things, like I said, in my own life that I needed to give Him full surrender and full control over to again. So that was just a really neat thing that God worked in my life here recently, and I was just super encouraged by being challenged and convicted, if that makes sense. And I'm thankful to the Lord that He did that. I found myself, like I said, if it was a message for no one else, it was for me, and so just super thankful for that. Also, personally, I just remember several months ago, really finding myself in a dry place, finding myself going through the motions in some ways, leading from a place of emptiness, from a place where I was just really kind of dry and just depleted. And I remember the Lord just really in specific ways and at specific times sustaining me, that I so desperately needed that. I even remember having a board meeting and sharing some of those things with the board of the place I was at. And it was good to let them in on that and see their response, and knowing that they're praying for me and encouraging me. And so just some really neat things over these last several months of just God doing some amazing things, speaking to my heart in some significant ways. and challenging me in my character and in my growth and in my calling. And so, as I continue to grow in those things, these are areas that not only I need to be experiencing, but bringing others along on this journey. Because this is not something we're called to go through alone. And this is something that I think too, that God wants to continue moving others along this process as well. So just wanted to share that with you, how I've been challenged personally. Also wanted to share with you the ways that I've been challenged in my ministry. And this has been so good. It's been hard, but it's been good. There's been different things that have come up and scenarios and situations that have really found myself in a way that I was very unprepared. Not because the situation itself caught me that way, but just the realization that there are going to be going to continue to be things that are going to surprise me. There are going to be things that are not going to be that are not going to be expected. And so my response to those things needs to come from a place of wisdom. James talks about this prayer of asking God to give us wisdom, but he gives us this warning too, that along with that we need to expect that God's going to answer that prayer, that the unbelief is what will do us in. And so learning to understand that God comes through and will fulfill that prayer request, that ask of giving wisdom, and then fully expecting that he's going to do what he said he would do. And so I found myself praying that prayer and resting in that assurance, that promise of God, that he's going to continue to give me those things as I ask. So through that, I've realized that there are ways that I need to be better at delegating responsibility, identifying things that, yeah, I can do, but I don't need to do, and bringing others along through that, so that I don't have to be the only one doing the things. Here in these last several weeks, our church, we've been preaching through Nehemiah. And in Nehemiah, if you're familiar with that, is this layman, Nehemiah, who's been called by God to do this, just this incredible project, rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem after the exile. And so this whole process chronicles how he went about doing that, and how God gave him what he needed every step along the way. And Nehemiah's heart was continued to be submitted to God in very significant ways. So there's that overarching theme, but also inside of that is this call that I felt that I needed to give to our church, and that is, there are no sidelines. There is no place for anybody to sit and watch things happen. That we're all called to be a part of this great work and identifying what this work is, which is proclaiming the gospel in various forms. And so each one of us has this calling and this duty to be a part of that, of fulfilling this great work. And so in this whole process of finding myself in that story and seeing the church in that story, this desire to see everyone find a place, discover a place of ministry. And so one of the parts of my jobs that I saw that Nehemiah did really well was that he identified these areas that were of need for people to do, and then equipping people and sending them to do it. And so I need to get better at that, of identifying these areas of ministry that I don't need to do, but that I can invite people to be a part of. Then all of a sudden there's buy-in. Then all of a sudden there's ownership. There's things that they are able to express or experience a blessing of God in fulfilling what he's called them to do. So there's this delegating aspect. I felt like God has challenged me to begin discipling some more people, and there's some key leaders that I need to be investing in, as well as others that maybe don't quite see themselves as leaders yet, or maybe don't know where they fit, and trying to help them discover this calling that God has for them as well, of a role that they can play, and where they fit. And so as a church, we're going through this whole process, and then individually for myself personally, of where I fit into that as well. Part of my calling as a pastor of this church is bringing others along and challenging them in where they are, and seeing them fit inside this narrative of being a part of this great work of God, that God chooses to partner with us. God chooses to work out his purposes through us. And that's a high calling. That's a privilege that we shouldn't take lightly. And it's something that God continues to hone and shape and sanctify, even for many of us. And so through this whole process of these things happening in ministry, my prayer too has been trying to understand what God's purpose and plan is, and his vision for this church that I'm serving. And so coming back to this place of asking important questions: why are we doing what we're doing? Whatever program that we've decided is important, how does it fit in to this great purpose and plan that he has for this church? And so we even had to come back to the place of understanding what that calling is, understanding what that vision is. And so years back, I came across this vision statement that the church had, and it really resonated with me. And I began to pray through it, and asking God again, Lord, is this a purpose? Is this the vision you have for this church? And as I prayed that, God began to speak to each one of those different parts of this vision that he has. And so our vision is kind of summarized in 3 words: reach, build, serve. So reaching others with the hope and the power of the gospel, building one another up, and that's discipleship, that's equipping for ministry. And then serve. So not only serving the body of Christ, but also serving our community. And so as the Lord began to speak to me in that, trying to understand that again, and what it means in the context of where we are in this community, and what this church has been, some things began to be stirred in my own heart. And we've decided to pursue a community center. And it was just kind of a weird thing, how all these pieces began to come together, but how God began to confirm each of these things along the way, that this is the direction that he has for us. And so we've got some ideas, and actually the possibilities are endless with what this could mean, but giving us some beginning points that we as a church body are going to pursue, and try to understand what it is that God's going to accomplish through those things. So not trying to establish new programs for the sake of a new program, not trying to start new ministries for the sake of starting new ministries, but trying to be intentional in what we're doing. How does this fit within each part of this reach, build, and serve? And so this community center, as we begin partnering and understanding what the needs are of our community, and partnering with the community, but making sure that those line up with these purposes, this vision of our church. How is this going to reach people in our community with the hope of the gospel? How is this going to serve them with the heart of Jesus and loving them into the kingdom? How does this fit into this idea of discipling others for ministry? And so it's not very hard to look at each one of those things and say, yeah, this community center can do just that. But we want to be purposeful. We want to be intentional in how these strategies begin to unfold. So yeah, those are kind of some quick things that that the Lord has just been revealing to me and stirring and reawakening. Again, the purpose of this podcast has been to bring you along in this journey of what God is doing, how it is something that is continuing to be shaped by His power and His presence in my life, and bringing you along on this journey of all of that. And it's not just sharing it for the sake of sharing it, but hopefully you find yourself encouraged in that too, because this is not something I ever thought I would be doing. When I first received my call to ministry, it was not picturing myself doing this, being a senior pastor of a church. I enjoyed working with teens and doing all of that, but God is ever changing and ever evolving, and our lives need to be a result of that. In fact, our lives need to be a result of what God is doing on the inside. If we're not being changed and challenged and transformed, then I would challenge you that maybe you're not walking with the Lord in the ways that He has. Maybe you're not allowing yourself to be open to what He wants to say and do. There's things that we're holding back. And I can testify that that's been me many times. But trusting and knowing and experiencing how God is just so good, how He loves us enough to not leave us where we are, but continues to challenge us to becoming more and more like Him. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for following me on this journey. I'm excited for the things to come. So thank you so much. God bless.